Well, hello again, everybody. This is John Norris at Trading Perspectives. As always, we have our very good friend, Sam Clement. Sam, say hello.
Hey, John.
You doing okay today?
I'm doing awesome. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay today. All things considered, here we are in week umpteen of the lockdown or shutdown of the U.S. economy. And here in Alabama, whenever Kay Ivey said non-essential people or workers, all that good stuff. And you and I, like everyone, just trying to figure out what the new normal looks like.
What's this going to look like?
What's it going to look like coming out on the other side? What's it going to look like when our state reopens, when the country as a whole reopens, when we start getting back to some sense of normalcy? I'm not exactly sure what that normalcy is going to look like, but I think it's going to be a little bit different than what we here are with 60 or 70% capacity.
Sure. I mean, it's hard to imagine people not being a little hesitant going to the grocery store, to sporting events, to movie theaters, what have you. I think people are going to be a little hesitant. I think human behavior is going to change, at least for a little while. So we'll just have to see what it looks like whenever we do get the green light and start opening back up.
I think you're absolutely right. And on the reopening of the economy, opening back up, I mean, people are kind of divided on this. My wife Beth is a pediatric audiologist, so she sees things very much through a healthcare lens. You know what I do for a living, so I see things very much in economic terms. And I just come to the conclusion it's really kind of a lose-lose situation. I mean, it really is. I mean, you open it up back up too soon, and all of a sudden, infections increase. And if infections increase, then deaths increase.
Sure.
But if you don't open it back up, holy smoke, you're going to have a lot of structural damage to the U.S. economy. And even more than that, I think you're going to see a lot of problems with state and local budgets, balance sheets, and just overall local municipality and state government finances.
Yeah, so I mean that's the difference between the U.S. government shutting down versus the state governments. So the state governments don't have a Federal Reserve. They don't have a way to print money. They don't have a way to just kind of spend money that they don't have per se, or at least to the same extent that the U.S. government does. They don't have a printing press is really the best way to put it. So brings me to a question. Our neighboring state, Georgia, Governor Kemp is talking about. They're opening up. Yeah, Brian Kemp. They're opening up. Is it today, tomorrow? A little bit, here and there.
Friday the 24th.
Okay, so they are opening up the economy. Do you think it is the appropriate time? Do you think we're early? They are early to do that. Do you think they're late? What are your thoughts on it?
Well, the thing about it is I don't think anyone will have a real good answer for that. I think Brian Kemp probably knows his state's finances a lot better than I, and I doubt he would be capricious about the healthcare risk to his state if he didn't think it was economically justified. Well, and then that's my personal take on it.
That's kind of what I'm getting at is it feels good to say no. We should keep things shut until there's no more cases, until this isn't an issue at all. But one, is that realistic? And two, is that financially feasible? Are we able to just shut the economy down and take in no revenue and have no money being spent until this becomes to a point where it's just non-existent, pretty much? And I would answer that no. I don't think that's feasible financially. I don't think it's really possible. I mean, I think this was probably going to be around for a while, and so I don't think we can continue to just keep things shut.
Well, this past week, what the Department of Labor announced that some 4.4 million Americans filed initially for unemployment claims.
Over 26 million total now.
Over 26 million total. I mean, over 26 million total, which would make it the third most populous state if all those people were a state.
A little less than Texas.
A little bit less than Texas, and a little bit more than Florida. And so you kind of take a look at that. Those numbers really almost don't compute. And this is after the CARES Act, after the PPP loans were made, were about that same time. Still 4.4 million Americans filing jobless claims. I don't think this is going to end. And so it's not just the federal government, that's paying all these costs. It's Atlanta, it's Montgomery. The coffers are drying up because if we're operating at 60 or 70% capacity in total, and that's an estimate I saw from the Wall Street Journal, that 30% was idle, so that means 70% were using it. I mean, that's a significant decrease in sales taxes, usage fees, even parking meters. I mean, traffic violations.
Just think how state and local governments get their money. It's through people, through spending,
through interactions,
just doing
transactions.
Stuff. Yeah, transactions, doing stuff, parking, shopping, tollways, what have you. people need to be out. These quarantines suck up pretty much all of a state's revenue, or majority of it. So, and states, like I mentioned, they can't print their own money, and they also can't go bankrupt.
So that means one of two things. Or a combination thereof. It means if a state can't go bankrupt, by Constitution, I think that's actually in the Constitution.
Say it's a business. Say you couldn't go bankrupt.
Yeah.
What would your options be?
Well, you would...
Because really they're a business. I mean...
You'd have to cut costs and probably cut services. And if you couldn't borrow the money, which I don't think a lot of states will be able to borrow the money.
Yeah, so you can't... So this business that we're saying can't really borrow a bunch of money is going to have a trouble increasing the revenues at all, even if they increase, say, parking meters or tollways or taxes. Well, no one's doing those things, so it's not going to have a huge effect. You got to start cutting back. That's the only way, really.
So what you're talking about is job losses, a reduction in services, and all that good stuff.
Think of all the people in those government system that are state, local jobs.
Which is amazing, the tentacles that state and local government has throughout the U.S. economy, just like the federal government. I mean, just a lot of tentacles, a lot of multiplier effect, not just the jobs, but the services and even the projects, road building, all that type of stuff. That requires a bunch of people from the private sector to get involved. So all this is in Brian Kemp's mind. Heck, it's in Kay Ivey's mind. It's in Cuomo's mind. It's in everyone's mind. Everyone's mind. Even Pritzker in Illinois, they're all going to Washington saying we need some more money. I mean, Cuomo's talking with Trump about it. Now Cuomo, don't want to reopen his state, but he wants some money from somewhere.
Sure.
So that's the end. It's not a question of if public entities, states. States, counties, and local governments are going to have a problem. It's they're currently having a problem. Brian Kemp sees this, and this past Monday, he sent out his now, it's almost infamous plan, and this is what he said. I'm going to read it to you. Due to favorable data and more testing, gyms, fitness centers, bowling alleys, body art studios, barbers, cosmetologists, hair designers, nail care artists, I can't even pronounce that. Their respective schools and massage therapists can reopen Friday, April 24th with minimum basic operations. Not exactly sure what he means by minimum basic operations, but my first reaction to this was almost comical. I'm going, bowling alleys, really?
Bowling alleys.
Tattoo parlors, body piercing joints, barbershops. Apparently, listen, you went to high school in Georgia. You tell me, are these things really the economic engine of the Peachtree State?
I couldn't tell you last time I went to a bowling alley, and I've never been to a tattoo parlor, so not much help on either of those.
So that's what I found a little bit comical. We're reopening a lot of brouhaha, a lot of people being very critical of Brian Kemp doing this, and we're talking about minimum basic operations at bowling alleys and tattoo parlors, and the man is getting pillared for this, but he also understands the people that work in these places are probably not going to be completely covered by PPP programs. They're also probably likely to lose their jobs. This is also, this is an attempt to get some people back to work so they take some release valve off of the public coffers in the state of Georgia.
So it seems like every governor is in agreement that they need more money.
Yes.
They're either asking the government for it or trying to push their economy to open back up to increase those lines of revenue. So are we at a point where we can start shifting more towards increasing our revenue again, or do you think we still need to be just borrowing money, taking money from the government, the federal government?
Right now, I think we're in a lose-lose situation. I think I've already said that. I am personally more inclined to view things from economic terms. If a governor and the local powers that be feel as though they want to take the economic risk to reopen their economies, then they should be able and free to do so.
Sure.
Constitutionally, understanding that consumers can opt not to go to the grocery stores.
Sure.
They can opt not to go to the bowling alleys.
I think you'll see a lot of that.
And they can opt not to go to the movie theaters. They can opt to not get some more ink. They can opt not to do all this type of stuff.
Keep quarantining how they have been, even if
everyone can keep doing that. It's the mandated closure of these businesses that at some point you got to lift them. At some point you're going to have to take a risk, because I'm afraid this is going, until we have a vaccine for it, a pure cure for it, COVID-19 is going to be around. We'll never get zero cases for it until it will never vanish until we can kill it. And right now, we can't kill it without killing human beings.
I got a question for you. Do you think some of these businesses are glad almost that they're being forced to shut down right now? Because you think about it, when they're forced to be shut down, they get all these extra loans. They get the PPP loans and what have you. And so they're able to stay afloat right now. But the second, say, they're allowed to go back, I'm sure some of these loans will stop. They won't keep getting loaned out all this money, and so they'll have to go back to paying employees. With sometimes some studies I've seen have shown up to 80% of people still won't be going out, so it bumps their costs back up and doesn't really bump up their revenue a whole lot. Right now, they have kind of an escape for it.
I would take the opposite tack to that. I mean, helping to start Oakworth Capital Bank and all that stuff, and knowing a number of business owners, I've yet to meet the business owner that doesn't want to be open for business. Now, I hear what you're saying about the loans, but even the PPP program, there was not a mandate that you had to be closed.
Sure.
So it's a payroll protection scheme. So I'm not sure if the funds would completely dry up. No, those business owners, they love being in business. They love being open. They want to see the revenue coming in. They also want to know that the light's at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
And so that's the biggest question mark, over everyone's head, over every business owner's head, knowing that you got to get open sometime. So is it this week? Is it next week? Understanding that the longer we put off, the harder it's going to be to come back. I would imagine the vast majority of business owners, would rather say, let me take that chance. Let me make that business decision on my own. And, if no one comes in, we can shut back down again,
Sure.
if all that stuff. But I got to get back to some sense of normalcy.
At least where they can kind of control it, I guess.
Yeah, because right now, the government's controlling
Out of
our
their
lives.
hand.
And it's kind of out of their hands. And that's what the private enterprise system is. It wants people need to be able to control their own decision making.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of currently think. But going back to reopening the economies, I mean, Brian Kemp's just the tip of the tsunami here. We're going to start seeing other governors do it, unless the cases in Georgia completely spike way out of control. And I would say much better to start in Georgia, which is a bigger state, but not the biggest state, which is a relatively dense, it has a densely populated metropolitan
Texas is starting
area.
to open back up a little bit.
But it wouldn't be fair to say open up South Dakota and say, okay, this is how it's going to be throughout the entire country, or even open up New York and say this is how it's going to be throughout the entire country. I think Georgia's a good enough proxy that we take a look at it, see how it happens, see what the cases. All of a sudden, if Grady Hospital in Atlanta is overflowing again, then maybe we take a scale back. So I think that Georgia's a pretty good test case. I'm encouraged by it. I'm encouraged they're starting off small, and and gradually have some steps out there. We'll have to see, but obviously I think we're both in agreement that we just can't stay in permanent lockdown without a significant deterioration in public finances across the country, which would have absolutely disastrous economic effects.
I'm 100% in agreement.
So there you have it. I mean, I don't know if we're trading perspectives. I think we're in agreement on this, that, at some point we got to get back at it. We got to get back to work. Brian Kemp's been taking a lot of grief. However, I really do believe his heart's in the right place, that he really wants to get the people in the state of Georgia back to work. And it's also practical because he's sitting there watching Atlanta's coffers, the state coffers, being depleted with really no way of filling them back up again until the state gets back to work. So they're first. Hopefully everything will work out better than the naysayers are predicting, but it probably won't work out as well as maybe everyone would like, but it's going to be someplace in the middle, and other states will have to make their decisions from there. What do you think?
I like it.
I like it too. Well, guys, thank you all so much for listening. We love to hear from you. Also, if you have any questions or comments, please let us know. You can send us an email to tradingperspectives@oakworthcapital.com, where you can leave us a review on the podcast outlet of your choice. If you're interested in hearing more or reading more of what we have to say, you can check out our blog, Common Sense, amongst other good stuff, underneath the Thought Leadership tab at oakworthcapital.com. As always, Sam, I'm going to give you a last chance.
That's it.
That's all from me today, too. Y'all take care.